So this is fascinating to me, and I don't know how people are going to defend it. The President of the United States commuted the sentences of around 1,500 people. This is from the Wall Street Journal. President Biden will commute the sentences of around 1,500 people in the largest single-day act of clemency for any president in modern U.S. history. That's incredible. The commutation announcement in a statement Thursday are for people who were released from prison and placed in home confinement during COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the commutations, Biden is also pardoning 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes. So this is kind of interesting. Here's what I found fascinating about this. Prisons became a fertile, I'm going to go down the wrong road on this whole topic in a moment. Prisons became a fertile breeding ground for infection during the pandemic, and some inmates were released in an effort to stop the virus from spreading. And yet, we locked all the kids at home. Kids got locked up in the house. We saw what happened inadvertently with nursing homes in New York. People going to the hospital in COVID, and then as soon as they were past the critical stage, they were then sent back to the nursing home. We've learned a lot, but that's it. There's a survey out. Only about 20%, just about 2 in 10 Americans approve of President Joe Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter after earlier promising he would do no such thing, according to a poll from the Associated Press. The displeasure tracks with bipartisan uproar in Washington. The survey found that a relatively small number of Americans strongly or somewhat approve of the pardon. There is a difference between understanding a father doing this and agreeing with it. It just is. And so this idea of clemency is not strange to a presidency. Presidents do this a lot. It's part of what they do at the end of their second term in many cases. But what I find interesting about this is the political implications with the division we have. There isn't right and wrong in America, really, with many people. It's right and left, and that's just how it is. If your guy does it, it is okay for one reason or another. And if it's not okay, all you have to do is point to the other side and say, well, at least it's not as bad as that, or it's no different than that. And I just am anxious to see how this plays out. Does this not open the door for this to happen? You got to remember, Trump's only got 4 years. He doesn't have a chance at a second presidency, not a second term. So he can do what he believes is right without concern for political fallout for his reelection. Now, he does have to worry about the Congress, to a certain degree, his allies in the United States Congress, and maintaining a Republican majority. So some of the decisions that may have long-term fallout in the midterms, and 2 years from now, he's got to worry about the House with such a small majority for Republicans. But when you look at these things, most Americans, and I will tell you that things like this, the pardon of Hunter Biden and all these other things that are happening, it is when they happen and then they're justified by people, or at least people try to excuse them away, is the reason why you see the largest shift in voter registration going to people that consider themselves and call themselves independent or party undeclared or not declared. They have not changed their political views. There are left-leaning independents, there are right-leaning independents. And I would say that independent voters have the same spectrum within their demographic as the Republicans and the Democrats do. They haven't changed their beliefs. They want nothing to do with the team. And I'm telling you that the political party and the Republicans obviously did it a little better. It isn't that the entire nation looked at the Republican platform and said, oh, that is a better idea. What people wanted was something different. And the political party that understands they can't dictate to people is the one that ends up winning. That if you think that American voters are dumb, they're not. There's a reason why when you watch cable news, you see ratings falling in many places. Because when you see, we're going to, later on in the 9 o'clock hour, there's a segment of the show that's planned where CNN is talking about the poll numbers and the approval and the belief by voters in America that Trump is going to do a good job. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to change. We all know poll numbers go all over the place. But in the onset of the presidency, he is doing better now than he did the first time around. After the 4 years of the Trump presidency, which we were told were the worst in American history, after the 4 years, after the loss to Joe Biden, after the convictions, he's more popular going into office now than when he was in 2016 going into 2017. That is just factual based on the poll numbers and the data. So is it that the American people made a big shift right? No, it isn't. It is that when you hear people try to demonize, when you virtue signal and you're not virtuous, it's the old adage of, people in that own glass houses shouldn't throw stones. It is that you pretended to be, you portrayed yourself to be better than the other side, that we're a better option because we're more virtuous. Look how horrible they are. Basket full of deplorables, garbage. It just didn't work. It didn't work. And this, what the president is doing with commutations of sentences is an example of all of it.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.